welcome to our workshop. Ministry and Worship in the Age of Technology. My name is Tim Atkins, and I wear many hats, but two of the hats that are relevant for today, I am the Director of Religious Education at the Morristown Unitarian Fellowship. I also serve as the Director of Social Media for the Church of the Larger Fellowship.
And my name is Lara Campbell. I serve as the ministerial intern at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northern Westchester, and also as the Minister of Worship for Church of the Larger Fellowship. So all of the online worship experiences that happen with Church of the Larger Fellowship are my responsibility.
I know, I was just about to mention that for those who don't know what the Church of the Larger Fellowship is. It's a congregation that started back in the day through all the mail, through U.S. mail, with mostly pamphlets and newsletters, that sort of thing. It's moved to being an all-online congregation. And we have weekly celebrations of worship that are all video, and there's a strong community built around that. And so we are going to talk a little bit about how to use technology with ministry and worship. We'll be talking some about social media. We'll be talking some about the physical technology in order to make some of this stuff happen. Back last year, I just started as a DRE a few months ago. Before that, I was down in Atlanta with the congregation. And I've been doing their social media. I'm just a volunteer for the last 3-4 years, and I've seen the difference social media can make in the life of a brick-and-mortar congregation as well, and how that really takes your congregation's ministry up to the next level, where people are identifying with their faith throughout the whole week rather than just Sunday mornings, and they become a strong believer and evangelist when it comes to you use on social media. And I've seen the difference technology can make with making church just run better, I guess. I'll be using the term church, congregation, fellowship all interchangeably today, just to confuse all of you. Down south, everything's a church, so I usually refer down to church.
So when I started with Church of the Larger Fellowship, I would say, I wouldn't say that I was ever technology averse, but I definitely was a little reticent. And I talked about my first 3 months at CLF being, it wasn't even a learning curve, it was a learning explosion. It was sort of like everything I thought about how to do things was sort of just plastered against the wall, and I got to learn how to start to pull things back, which was really, it was terrifying at one point, but it was also really helpful because it pushed me to think differently about the work that I was doing. I had no idea how to make a video before I started there. I had never podcasted. I'd never, other than I used to be a therapist, and so I used to have to videotape myself as a therapist, but that was the extent of having been on camera, and that's not on camera. So the thing that I want to just sort of lay out there for folks is that we can do this. I know for a lot of people it feels really overwhelming and like it's a lot of stuff.
And you will be overwhelmed at various points.
At various points.
Through this presentation.
But it's very possible for every congregation to engage and use technology in their worship and congregational life. You don't have to have all of the bells and whistles to get going. I will tell you, you'll start getting addicted and wanting to buy bells and whistles, but you don't have to have them to start. And I think that's one of the things that initially really stops people. Like, well, we don't have the right projector, we don't have the right this, we don't have the right that. And I'm here to say you can do it. And it's okay. One of the things that we say at Church of the Larger Fellowship is that everything is beta all the time. We are, and that's the beauty of it, is that we can also fail and be like, oh, totally didn't work. But if it's beta, that means that we're free to explore and we're free to really sort of just stretch ourselves. So I just wanted to sort of lay that out there for people, because it gets a little like, oh my God, they're doing that and they're doing that and they're doing that. Oh, we could never do that. Oh yeah, you can. You'll get there. It just takes some steps. So I just want to make sure I said that.
Wonderful. We're going to be passing around this. They want us to take attendance. So if you're not on the list already, just fill in. You'll get the hang of it. Okay. Let's see if I can make this work. All right. So here's a brief outline of what we're going to do today. Introductions. We're already done.
Woo! We can check it off.
See if we can check it off. We're going to move to why bother with technology and social media. Then we're going to get into different social media platforms, and that's where you're going to feel overwhelmed, just as a warning. Then we'll talk a little bit about some specific strategies to use with some of the more major platforms out there. We'll move into tricks of the trade that we picked up from our time with the CLF. How to use what we just talked about in congregational life, some practical applications that you can start doing tomorrow. And then we'll leave time for questions, and we'll also have a snack break. So the philosophy of social media. I'm going to be focusing a lot on social media at the beginning, but we're going to move into other forms of technology as well. Social media has moved from information sharing to inspiration sharing. Social media used to be all about events, sharing event information with each other. Now we're sharing what inspires us with our friends. So why do we use social media? Social media helps move church beyond just Sunday mornings. This is the first and foremost of why I'm a proponent of social media. Back in my old congregation, I would be there on Sundays, but I was a youth advisor, so I often missed the service. And I also worked a 1 to 9:30 at night job, so I missed every weeknight event. I needed a way to maintain my connection to my congregation where I couldn't make weeknight events and miss the Sunday service. So I started doing our congregation social media and found my connection to my home congregation through social media. I'm just going to continually block you, just to let you know, okay? It helps congregants talk about their faith. Social media is a great way to evangelize and invite people to your congregation. People are very uncomfortable going door to door, or telling someone at the grocery store, or telling their friend face to face about what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist. In our experience, people don't mind as much sharing a pretty little picture that talks about what it means to be a UU, or what a famous Unitarian Universalist said about some topic. People are a lot more comfortable sharing their faith when it's through social media. It's where people already are. You'll see some pretty impressive statistics about coming up about how many people are on some of these social media sites. And it's a lot of people. People are there. People are hungry for our message. We need to meet them where they are. And that's why we need to be on social media. It expands your reach exponentially. And so I can talk about a real world example that's going on right now. With the CLF, we have 4,300 or so Facebook fans. We put out an image that was just we're holding the people of the Philippines in our hearts and minds right now because of that storm that hit. And over 38,000 people have seen that image when there are only 4,000 people that like our page. Doing social media expands your reach. We've heard stories already about how people have more Facebook fans than members of their congregation. How people get their email, more people get your email list than are members of your congregation. Expands your reach exponentially, and that's worth its weight in gold.
Tim, I cleared you a spot so you can step back a little bit. Yay!
I kind of want to keep blocking Lily. All right.
Can we get a copy of the slides at the end? Can you email them?
We should be able to. Maybe.
You'll have to email us.
Yeah,
to
we'll
get
talk
it.
about that later.
Okay.
It's an inexpensive, not completely free way to market. I say not, and sometimes, I don't want to say cost, but you can advertise on Facebook and social media, so there is some cost involved, but you can also be totally free way to market. When you're doing White, it's a very collaborative experience. You'll have a whole staff team, for example, working on a social media platform. And full week faith development. I'm a director of religious education, so I had to put that in there. Full week faith. It's the current hot topic in religious education right now. And we're going to talk a little bit more about specific strategies for RE later. So before you start a broad social media strategy, you want to think about, or communication strategy at all, you want to think about these two questions, both in the big picture and for each individual platform you're going to use. Who are you looking to reach? And what's the purpose? Who and why? So who are you looking to target? Are you looking to target just your congregation? Are you looking to target different affinity groups within your congregation? Are you looking to target congregational members as a whole? Are you looking to target your local community, or the greater world, or the denomination? Who are you looking to target? That will impact what platforms you want to focus on first. If your focus really needs to be on congregational members right now, you're going to put more of an emphasis on the newsletter. If your focus is people in the local community, you're going to focus more on maybe social media, certain social media platforms. If you're a religious professional and want to be active on social media, who are you looking to target? Is it the congregants at the church where you work? Is it colleagues, or is it the greater denomination? And you want to think about what the purpose of the communication is. Is the purpose inspirational? Is it to advertise events and get more people at your actual events? Is it to educate or political activism? Is it to build internal community? Is it to share ideas or evangelism or faith development, pastoral care? There's a million different possibilities for these social media platforms. Now, it can be more than one, obviously, because usually there are a lot, but you want to keep them, you want to have in your back of your mind what percentage, because that will help impact what type of post you make. So let's say you want to focus on a Facebook page. And for your Facebook page, you want to focus on, you kind of want it half to be inspirational. You want to inspire your members. You kind of want some of it to be community building and some of it to be faith development. And so you kind of have in the back of your mind what type of posts and who should be making those posts. But if your focus wants to be community building, you wouldn't start off with the Facebook page, you start off with the Facebook group. So there are different platforms based on which work best, based on what the purpose of that communication is. Okay, so now we're going to run through about a dozen of the major social media platforms out there. Be ready. First up is Facebook. And I have kind of four main ones I think every church should be on. I call it the Big Four, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But the first one is Facebook. Facebook is the standard social media platform right now. It's the second most visited website in the world, behind Google. 67% of all internet users are on Facebook. That's a big number. Especially appealing to women ages 18 to 29. I include demographic information on these social media platforms when available, because this all gets into targeting who you're trying to target. 1 out of every 7 minutes spent online is spent on Facebook, and I can personally attest to that fact. Maybe that's a little low. Our next one is Twitter. Twitter is the 10th most popular website in the world, but a lot of people use Twitter just on their mobile devices.
Tim, could you go just back to that last bullet?
We're going to talk more about that in a second.
Oh, okay.
Twitter, 10th most popular website in the world. 16% of the internet users are on Twitter. It's especially appealing to young adults, African Americans, and urban residents. Almost twice as many African Americans as a percentage use Twitter than whites. Twitter is best if you think about it in terms of building conversations. If you think of Twitter as a way to broadcast events, you're not going to get a lot of traction on Twitter. If you treat it as a way to have conversations with your local community, with congregants, you're going to see your numbers explode. Twitter is best when you think of it in terms of conversation building. Tumblr. Probably a lot of people in here haven't heard of Tumblr before. Tumblr is mainly geared towards young adults, I say ages 15 to 30. It's still the 33rd most popular website in the world. So what Tumblr is called short-form blogging. It's kind of like a cross between Twitter and a more typical blog. There are a lot of pictures, there are a lot of graphics, there are a lot of quotes, and some blog posts, but the blog posts are usually 2 paragraphs or less. It's a way to target youth and young adults, especially in a religious setting. There's a very dedicated, passionate user base, just from my personal observation. People who like Tumblr love Tumblr. People who aren't on Tumblr, not so much. I would say between Twitter and Tumblr are both skewing right now towards young adults and high school youth, but they are different subsets of youth. So some of your youth, for example, may really love Twitter. The ones who love Twitter don't love Tumblr. The ones who love Tumblr don't love Twitter. I would say Twitter's a little bit more for artistic expression, and Twitter's a little bit more for pure communication. And Pinterest. I love Pinterest. I love Pinterest, especially for religious education, because it's especially appealing to women, adults under 50, whites with some college education, and so many moms. So many moms are on Pinterest, and all on Pinterest. There's crafts, food, recipes, quotes, crafts. I'm not the world's craftiest person. That's not my expertise as a DRE. I will be upfront about that. And so I go to Pinterest for craft ideas. This is how I target RE families with my RE program, my Pinterest page. So let me explain this last point. At one point, it was driving more referral traffic than any other social media platform. So referral traffic means when you click on a link and get sent to another website. you can track how many people are clicking that link to go to your website. And at one point, gosh, this was maybe about 3 years ago, data showed that Pinterest was driving more traffic to other websites than any other social media platform, including Facebook. Shocked everybody. Why are people using Pinterest and going to these different websites so much? So it's a way to really build hits to your website as well. All right, so let's talk about a whole bunch more. We have Google+. Right now, more men than women use Google+, and most churches don't really use Google+ that much. So it's tough to learn about traffic and statistics for Google+ because it's part of the overall Google domain. But by a lot of measures, it's the third most popular social media site, behind Facebook and Twitter. But in my personal experience, Google+ is bigger internationally than it is in America. So be mindful of that. Facebook's definitely bigger in America than Google+, but internationally I see a lot more parity between the two. Google+ is most useful when you're using a whole bunch of other Google things, like YouTube. There's a way to link your Google+ page to YouTube, and you can do a lot more with it, which we're going to talk about later.
Actually.
We're going to get in depth on YouTube in a second. Do you want me to just do this
No,
part?
go ahead. Yes,
okay.
go ahead.
So these are just the stats on YouTube. We're going to go in depth with YouTube in this minute. It's the third most popular website in the world. It's only video, and it's easy to share through other social media sites. Now, odds are you have seen a YouTube video in the past week. I'm willing to bet. But odds are you did not comment on that video. So for me personally, I don't use YouTube that much for social media purposes. But you need to use it for your church. You need a place to archive those videos that you're taking. We'll talk more about how to best YouTube in a minute, but yes.
One thing about YouTube, which is actually not that long ago, but it used to have like a 10-minute limit, and so we couldn't put sermons on YouTube because we would have to break it up in 2 or 3 10-minute sections. We would actually use Vimeo for sermons, but now the 10-minute limit is gone. You can put long things on YouTube now, so it was a big step forward, I think.
Absolutely. Wholeheartedly agree. Instagram is the 65th most popular website in the world. 13% of all internet users are on Instagram. That surprised me it was that big, to tell you the truth, when I first saw that stat. It's especially appealing to young adults, African Americans, Latinos, women, urban residents, not your stereotypical church member, probably. Photo sharing is all photos, and it's all pretty much done through a smartphone. It's currently the hot social media platform that churches are still trying to figure out how to best use, I would say, because it's all photos. But if you talk with your high school youth group, they're all on Instagram as well. So this is because they're on Instagram because their parents aren't. That's why they moved to Instagram. But it's currently the hot social media platform. It's all pictures. LinkedIn, you may have heard of LinkedIn. You may be on LinkedIn. 13th most popular site in the world. 20% of all online adults are on LinkedIn. For congregational use, I mean, I'm the world's biggest fan of LinkedIn, I have to admit. I find it annoying, but I'm still on it. I have, my resume up there like everybody else. For congregational use, my old congregation had a big networking email list. And so it would be a way to have kind of a networking group. You can have groups on LinkedIn. So you can start a group for your congregation and have like a networking group on LinkedIn. That's kind of the best way I figured out how to use it so far. Flickr is a photo storing and photo sharing website. Flickr redid their mobile application to better compete with Instagram because Instagram got so big, but it's probably not going to make a big dent. Instagram users are pretty loyal. The main use for us would be to find and store inspirational photos. It's a good photo storing website. Photos can take up a lot of space on a website, and so it's a way to store photos. Foursquare, if you haven't heard of Foursquare, you can check into different locations as you go there. For a congregational setting, you just want to make sure your congregation is on Foursquare. Odds are someone's put it on there already, but can't be for certain. If you're a religious professional, you can use Foursquare to have links to your Facebook account, so people can see kind of, sometimes it's tough to get an idea because we have a lot of meetings we have to go to, for example. And so you can kind of post as you're going from meeting to meeting so people can get an idea of what a day in the life of the DRE is like. With Meetup, meetups are great for, I would say, your non-churchy events. Let's say you're going to have a young adult go out to a bar and talk about deep topics, like theology on tap. I would have a meetup for that, so other people could find it. If you're going to have a board game group that meets at your fellowship, this is a nice little fellowship fun event. I would put it on Meetup so other people can find it. There are some congregations that use Meetup a lot, some not, and they use it to huge success. It's a way to expand your base and even begin evangelizing, but it's good for I would not put Sunday services on Meetup, but I would put like a movie night on Meetup. I see it. Where is it? Oh well, I'll come up to it eventually.
Can I just ask?
Vine. Yes, go ahead.
Go back to Meetup for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Would you promote it through other social media?
You can, absolutely.
Okay.
So I just moved from Atlanta to northern New Jersey. Don't know anyone in the area. So I needed a social outlet. And so I went on Meetup and found a board game group, because I'm a dork, you can tell by the glasses, that I like board games. And so I found a board game Meetup group so I could have kind of a social outlet. And I found it from Atlanta. And so I now am an active participant and I've met some pretty good people from that Meetup group. Vine is the new kid on the block. Vine is owned by Twitter. I forget if Twitter launched it or bought it, but it's owned by Twitter. Short videos, 6-second or less long videos. And so,
Love
them.
Crazy love them.
Yeah, some people absolutely love Vine. It's mostly smartphone users who use it as a Vine app, but you can also post the link to your Vine video on your other social media platforms. You can challenge audience to do a 6-second long sermon and see what happens. No, or you can take videos of a communal event sort of thing. Yelp, this is the one that I think I accidentally moved it. Yelp is a way to, I use Yelp if I'm going to a restaurant I've never gone to before. I'll look it up and see what the reviews are. People do that with churches too. People will Google your church before they go. They will look at what reviews you have. And Yelp is a place they look for those reviews. Especially young adults will check out your reviews before ever going. And so you want to make sure your church is on Yelp. Odds are so it's already on there, but if not, you want to get it listed. But someone from your congregation should be tasked with making sure the comments aren't terrible. And if they are, you have someone designated to respond. So someone just needs to be aware of the Yelp page and check it out every now and then. Podcasts. 50% of adults are aware of podcasts. 1 in 5 have listened to one in the past month. I listen to podcasts all the time. I love them. Because you listen on the phone in the car or on your commute. People love podcasts because that commute is almost half an hour on average, and it's a lot longer sometimes in this area. So people are going to listen to those sermons on podcasts. People listen to all kinds of NPR things on podcasts, for example. So you want to have a church podcast. We'll talk more about that in a minute. There are apps and mobile sites. So let's talk about the difference between these two. Applications are ones that you either buy or get for free off like the iTunes store or the Google Play, is that what it's called? One of the Android stores. Mobile sites you just go to on your regular web browser. And so for example, clfu.org has a pretty active mobile site. And we also have an app called Quest CLF. For congregations, don't worry about apps right now. It's easy to be tempted to say, I want to have an app because that's what all the cool kids are doing. But apps done poorly, never get looked at again. I would encourage you, if you're looking at trying to do an app, to instead focus on a better mobile site, a mobile version of your website. Can't stress that one enough. For a while, there were no UU-themed apps out there, but now there are, and so that need's gone. So focus on the congregational mobile website.
So I was just to give you a quick little highlight. Illuminations, which you can download, has a little chalice on it that you can light. And so when we get to the application of this, that's part of what becomes, in terms of less so about congregational life and more about personal,
Greater UU identity.
greater UU identity, and taking it home with you, making our faith 24/7. You can blow it out. Yeah, you can go,
Yeah.
and it'll blow out. It's kind of fun. And if you're ever in a meeting and you don't have a chalice,
Yeah, there we go.
So Tim, I just want to ask about the mobile, congregation-specific mobile site. A mobile site, if I understand, is just the ordinary site you've already got, more than likely. But it's optimized for viewing on a phone, right?
Yes and no. Most mobile websites are like that, yes. You can also have a mobile site that is specifically designed to be a mobile site. That's what the CLF has. It's slightly different from our main page. But if, for example, if you have a WordPress-based website, there are easy application things, I forget what they're called right now, for WordPress that makes it into a nice-looking mobile site for pretty cheap. So most mobile sites are just optimized for mobile phones, but there are some that are just really vastly different.
So I'm just thinking about this content management system that Dennis is
Mhm.
supposedly working on. I mean, we can flag certain things as being yes, put on the mobile site, or no, don't put on the mobile site.
Depends on what platform, but odds are yes.
It's called responsive design, right?
Maybe.
Well,
I am a social media guy, not a website guy.
Sounds great,
So-
that sounds right to me.
Sounds like you know what you're talking about. Oh,
Yeah,
right.
Well, if the site knows what kind of resolution you're looking
Right.
for, and it will rearrange so that it's formatted.
Yeah,
For
so
your-
I think typically you go to a site, and if you browse it on a phone, you end up on the M version, right?
Yeah, but it also can respond to a tablet or other shapes.
Email marketing, text alerts. Most of us probably have an email newsletter at this point. The two main ones that people use are MailChimp and Constant Contact. But there are also listservs. My local congregation use Yahoo groups for a million different things. And they work great for us. Now we're kind of switching over to Google groups instead of Yahoo groups, which I don't get why, but there we go. Those work great. There are also congregations using group text. You'll see some youth groups wanting to use this. I think group texts are the group texting thing might be good for like an emergency plan. If their church has to close suddenly because of a blizzard, I'm from the South. I keep imagining that in winter. I'm so in
Tim's
trouble.
very anxious about the
Very anxious about snow.
this
So,
winter.
if the church has to close because of snow, like down south we do if there's 8 flurry, we would want to have kind of a text plan where we text everybody.
Can I ask you a question about listservs?
Mhm.
Do you know any low-cost, good listservs other than UUism?
Are you referring to a discussion group or more of a newsletter style?
More of a newsletter or a one-way mailing list?
Check out MailChimp. They have pretty cheap offers. There are some that are MailChimp versions that are free.
We use MailChimp, and I don't think we spend very much on it.
Yeah. In fact, because from what you were telling me, I think
I'm talking about
Policy's
both being able to
fairly
have
small.
moderated and, well, basically moderated lists.
so. If it's the moderated list, Yahoo groups and Google groups are free. Use those. If you're looking for more of a pretty newsletter, go with MailChimp.
Is MailChimp the sort of thing you can integrate with the website so people can sign up?
Yes.
Yeah, I know you can with Constant Contact.
I'm sure. I can't say with 100% certainty,
yeah,
but
yeah, with MailChimp you
it'd
can.
be
Yeah.
stupid if you can't.
Yeah,
So-
what we did in our congregation is we have our one main listserv, which is for sending notifications out to the congregation. We have one that's for a broader audience, for anybody who's connected to us. And then we have individual ones for some of the ministries, so people don't have to worry about what's the mailing list for the ministry. It's on the listserv, they just send it to the group,
Mhm.
and the whole group gets it.
Mhm. All right, so that's just a very basic review of some of the different platforms out there. That is not all of them. New things are showing up every day.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and yeah, tomorrow there'll be something else that everybody's on.
Yes.
That we're using. Because it's actually changed since the last time you did this.
Yeah, no,
You did
like-
this yesterday, but.
I did this Thursday, but I just had to add Vine to this, for example, because it got big enough. So let's talk about some specific strategies to use. Facebook. Images for Facebook. Okay, Facebook images get seen and shared a lot more than just a big block of text. Whenever you're doing something on Facebook that's just posting text, never let it be longer than 2 paragraphs. That's my rule of thumb. No more than 2 paragraphs on Facebook, because after that, people stop reading.
The other thing we've discovered about Facebook is we've tried to promote some of our posts on Facebook, advertising events. And what we've discovered is that if you put the text in the image, if you go over to what they call 20% text, they won't promote it. They bounce it back. And so what we've had to do is put the text separate from the image in order to get them to be willing to
Even
take it.
if you have so for example, with something I did for the CLF, we had a image that had a quote on it, but underneath that was like a more in-depth prayer. So people could, and that got sent, whenever someone shared the image, the prayer also got shared. It was like the caption, that people read it a lot. And I could see how many people actually clicked read. But you still want to have an image that goes along with the post. And we will be giving you a handout later that has some free image sites on there to help you all out. My personal goal for Facebook is a high number of people talking about this. That means how many likes, the post gets, how many comments you get, and how many shares you get. My personal goal is shares. Because with the CLF, my goal is to spread the word more than anything else. Let's talk a little bit about pages versus groups at this point. Every congregation should have a Facebook page. Facebook pages are your advertising vehicle. They're your publicity engine, I would say. Facebook groups are more closed discussion groups. Facebook groups are great for, you can have covenant groups. Your youth group may have a Facebook group. They may have a couple Facebook groups for your youth group, like ours does now. They're good for discussion groups, but you should still have a Facebook page for publicity purposes. You can build a conversation by asking questions, and with Facebook pages, you get great analytics to data mine to see how effective your posts are, who is seeing your posts. You can spend a lot of time looking at analytics. That's part of my job, and I spend so much time looking at them, but you can still get a good idea just by briefly looking. Twitter. Twitter is for conversations. You want to use scheduled tweet chats, and there's actually a website called tweetchat.com that makes this a whole lot easier on you. You can follow relevant hashtags and contribute to the greater conversation. We have a hashtag for this conference, for example, UU Defy Gravity, and there are like 4 of us posting on it. All of us DREs from New Jersey, I just want to point out, because I talked about this Thursday with them. My goal is to have more retweets than favorites. Twitter does take a decent time investment to do it right, and to use it to its best ability. There are a lot of people who just link their Facebook page to Twitter, and have whatever they post on their Facebook gets sent to Twitter. That's a starting place. You really want to have Twitter-specific messages that go out as well. So, for example, with Atlantis, what we did is I had short quotes from each of the sources that I found. And so Monday, I would tweet out a couple of quotes from the first source, a couple of quotes from the second source on Tuesday, etc. like that. And I was able to get a lot of people retweeting those, and the people from the congregation who followed it loved it. Just a nice reminder during the week of what it meant to be a UU.
Tim, can you schedule those? Or
Yes, you can schedule those both on Twitter, and there are also applications to make Twitter a lot easier. The most common one is called Hootsuite, like an owl hoot, H-O-O-T, S-U-I-T-E. And from Hootsuite, you can also post to Facebook. I use something called TweetDeck. That's just for Twitter. I just like it a little bit better. And I'm starting to move more towards TweetBot. TweetBot. Those just make Twitter easier to use if you're going to be using Twitter a lot, especially if you have multiple Twitter accounts. But that's like Twitter 2.0. For 1.0, if you're just getting started on Twitter, don't worry about those applications yet. Tumblr, I would say don't start on Tumblr right now. If you're not on Twitter, get on Twitter first. But if you're on a lot of other platforms, Tumblr should be one of on your list to get involved on. Photos and quotes get the most likes and reposts on Tumblr. Right now is, I would say, the youngest skewing major social media platform, so your post should reflect that. If you know as a congregation you're trying to target youth and young adults, Tumblr might be something you want to consider. Just like Twitter, you can use tags on Tumblr, hashtags on Tumblr, and stay longer away for anything longer than 2 paragraphs. Pinterest is only images. You should embed images with the link for that referral traffic, although you don't really need to anymore. You can search for other pins for like-minded groups and repin those. People use Pinterest for inspiration. People get inspired by Pinterest. Now, I use Pinterest a lot for my RE program, and I have a different Pinterest board for each of my RE classes, where I'm posting crafts for each class, or activities that families can do together at home that are relevant for each age group. And so that's how I use Pinterest for my RE program. I've seen other programs out there have boards for different holidays. So these are family activities they could do around Thanksgiving. For example, have a board just for Thanksgiving activities. I think Pinterest is wonderful for religious education. I'm done talking for a little bit. Laura, go.
Okay, all right.
Tag team.
So in terms of YouTube, that's where I spend a lot of my time, is with YouTube stuff. So first thing to do is to create a YouTube station so that all of the things from your congregation go to one station. Otherwise, you'll have it under yourself, and that can get confusing. Yeah?
So can you move things from one station to another? That's exactly what happened to me, and all my stuff is interspersed with stuff that I've done for the church.
I've had that problem too.
Can you like drag it over to create a new station?
That I don't know.
I don't think so.
Seems
I
like-
really
No,
don't think so.
I usually just, if I want it on my personal page, I put it on my personal, yeah, you have to kind of re-upload. Unfortunately, if you're commingled, I would say start another page and then just, I've got 5 minutes, I'll re-upload something to kind of
If need be,
start
you
to,
can start a playlist from the
Right.
arranged page to the
right,
congregation. And then the playlist, you can add videos from other people. So you can start with like a playlist for sermons that you accidentally posted from your personal account.
right.
You can have a playlist of those, and from now on, start posting on the congregational link.
So using a playlist by topic helps, will really, really, really help. One of the biggest mistakes that I see happen in our congregations is that we had such a fabulous, wonderful, inspired experience on church on Sunday, so I'm gonna just post up the entire worship service onto YouTube. Rarely will anyone sit and watch a 45-minute to an hour-long YouTube. They're not gonna do it. So figuring out, you can make a playlist of, here was the worship for this whole experience that has, here's the reading, here's the sermon. I really, really, really encourage people to edit, because how things appear in person and how they play online are very different. And if I'm sitting there watching you interact with all of these other people, I need you to look at me on the camera. I need you to interact with me so that I know that you're paying attention. Even if it's just that quick of a looking directly at the camera at some points.
So I think I know the answer, but I'll ask the question anyway.
Sure.
So can you put in a link that says, this link takes you to minute 10 of, something else? I mean, in other words, start at minute 10 and go to minute 20 of this 40-minute long.
I don't know if you can parcel it to a specific set. I think it's better to edit it to be.
I understand that, but I mean, if
Yeah.
if it's already there, for example,
Right.
Can you put in a link that says,
I do think if
I
it's
think you-
already up, I think YouTube will let you clip off beginning and end segments.
What you
So
and what
edit
you
it.
can,
I think I did it once on YouTube.
what you could do is put in the description section,
You could say start at minute 10,
Yeah.
go to 20, I know you can
Right.
do that, sure.
yeah, if you wanted to.
Uh-huh.
So and my feeling is that you're best, don't worry so much about what you've done in the past, concentrate on what you're doing right now and how you're moving forward
Mhm.
with it. You can always go back if you want to,
Mhm.
if you think there's really good stuff there, but I think we get bogged down in, oh my God, there's this mountain of all of these things I have to do behind me.
Certainly, the quickest thing is just put a little comment saying, don't bother with anything before 10, just start at 10 and go to 20 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you could, yeah. So edit the sermon down if possible. Give the sermon or whatever the talk a title. Oftentimes I'll see, 11/4/13 sermon. No, you want something that's going to pull people in. Don't put a date in there. Don't, so maybe it's, the title. I'm really bad at catchy titles, so I always have to email people, catchy titles, please give them to me. So maybe it's, Saving Souls, and that's your sermon title. Use that. And then in the description, you can put the date. You can put the minister's name who's preaching it. You can put what congregation it's from. But try to find statements for titles that are going to pull people in to help find them.
Well, I think actually, sorry. My comment actually, I think, is going to be more appropriate to the next bullet. But I was going to say that one thing I do is I systematically put the words Morristown Unitarian Video into the tags,
Yes.
so that
Yeah.
I always tell people, just search for those 3 words,
Yeah.
and you'll find everything we've
Yeah.
got.
So use those keywords. Use that description section. You can put more into the description section. If you use tags, you can put 1,000,000 tags in, but they're going to weight the top 3.
Mm.
So, weighting what you think are going to be the most important things for people to pay attention to. Make sense? Okay. Podcasting. I feel like this is going to be my foot stomper. It's on the test. Edit, 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 edit. Did I say that you should edit? Short attention span theater has kicked in our worlds, and we're more willing to sit through something, but that's also because we can look out the window every now and then. The minute I look off the window at home, I might as well just have gotten up and left if I'm watching a screen. So add an image to the cover art so that it also jumps out, whether it's some sort of a logo. I'm a big fan of branding things. So put the congregational logo up so that that's what people see. State at the beginning of the podcast before the speakers, this is the service from Reverend Kathleen at the Ridgewood Unitarian Society. Are you? I can't remember. I'm sorry. Totally messed that up with your name. So be aware of that. You can add it to you can add yourself and your congregation to the directory in iTunes. You don't have to get approval. You can just put yourself in, and that'll help. Posting podcasts regularly and timely is critical. So getting it out there, people are going to be more likely to pay attention to if they know, okay, by Sunday afternoon, the podcast of the sermon is up on a regular basis. Giving show descriptions so people know what to expect. You can provide links so if somebody's watching at home, they can click on the link and then they get the text of the sermon or the whatever it happens to be. You want to organize it and archive it so that people can find it. And anything that you do on YouTube, you can pull that audio section over as well. And I can't remember if I have it. Okay, so what I didn't say in terms of on the other slide where I talked about a 25-minute commute. So we say, great, our sermon's 20 minutes. Okay, it usually takes you a couple of minutes in the car to get going. I wouldn't do a podcast of more than about 10 to 15 minutes. Really you want people wanting more so that they're going to come back rather than giving them the whole thing. And it's actually much easier to edit than people think. There's sort of a panic or an anxiety about editing, but it really does happen, and it does keep things moving a lot quicker.
Do you have a preferred software for editing?
Okay. We have kind of a joke at Church of the Larger Fellowship because most of us are Mac people. Everything I do is either in GarageBand or on iMovie. I just have found it to be the easy. It works very easily with YouTube. It works easy, that's me personally. We have somebody else who's using Windows software, and she's having a little bit more trouble converting it to what we're doing. But there's a lot of them that you can just try out and see if it works for you.
So are you saying that you would advise people to break like a sermon, which is typically 20 minutes, into two pieces, so that people who
I'd consider editing it down to.
subscribing-
I'd consider to edit down to one piece.
How can you edit down a sermon to 10 minutes?
Because
Ridiculous.
there's a lot, when you listen to something, it's different than when you're hearing and
But
experiencing
that's what our
this.
minister said. I'm not going to pick and choose among what she said. She said 20 minutes worth of stuff. I'm not going to,
Then that's I'm telling you my experience. You all, we have, in our congregations, we all figure out what works best for us. That's been my experience. That people don't stick around, don't give it more than about 10
That's what I'm saying.
minutes.
To me, what makes sense is to say if it's 20 minutes, make it a two-piece thing so that if you subscribe to a podcast, you automatically get the next piece next time you listen to it.
Yeah, you can try it, see if it works. See how many people go from one to the other.
Doesn't Google have, YouTube has their own editing now?
I haven't used
Yes,
it.
you can.
Okay,
I know that
I
you
tried
can clip
using it.
at the beginning and end of YouTube. You can clip some. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, all right. Okay, so talking a little bit, we've mentioned a little bit, talked a little bit about this, is that being online is a totally different animal than being in your congregation. So what's wonderful, fabulous, great, the most important, meaningful thing for you in your Sunday worship service may just feel creepy online for people. And voyeuristic. And probably the most critical voyeuristic moment is joys and sorrows. Posting joys and sorrows online,
Oh,
You
that
shouldn't
was,
do that.
bad idea.
I do, but under a password.
Okay, so
I'd
it's
say it's a
only
little
people
different.
in the congregation can see that. And everybody knows that their joys and sorrows will be posted up.
But like
I
on
do it with
Facebook,
permission.
Great.
on Facebook, for example, that would
Yeah.
not be wise.
Or
But
even,
as a
or
password
as,
protected, it's a
like I
little
said, Tim and I joked about, I was like, it would not be appropriate for me to show you the bad things that I found that people at congregations, not just you, but lots of congregations have done online. And not out of maliciousness, just out of like I wasn't thinking about how this might be perceived. And joys and sorrows, that's that like, ooh, icky. Icky, yeah. As a therapist, that was my favorite clinical word, icky.
DSM-5.
Exactly, the icky factor. 20-minute sermons, love them on Sunday morning. Won't stick with them, and I know that for ministers, and if you're not the minister, making choices about what goes in and what doesn't go in, and that's a conversation you need to have with your religious leaders about how you want to get things out there. Again, I can tell you what I know, I can tell you what I've experienced, and you do what you choose with it. A full 20-minute sermon can be deadly for somebody to actually sit through the whole thing, especially to listen through the whole thing. If they're not going to sit at home. I mean, maybe somebody will do it while they're like doing dishes.
Yes, they
but-
might play it, but they're not listening to the whole thing.
Yeah.
I
So
I will play the 20-minute thing. I may have listened to about 10 minutes.
Which frankly happens on Sunday morning too. So movement activities. That again, the stand up, sit down, fight thing that happens on Sunday morning, not going to translate. And offering. Watching the basket. Think about that. Like, ooh, thrilling. That is compelling television. Watching that basket go around the room.
It's a new meditation.
When we talk differently than when we're preaching and when you're talking into a microphone. It's very different than when you talk on camera. And you do tend to speak slower in the pulpit and take longer pauses. And you will lose people in those pauses. You can be dramatic like that up on the chancel, not in video format. And in fact, I do a lot of editing for Church of the Larger Fellowship because people are wonderful and they share things with us. And I watch them and we go, yeah, we can't use that like that. And I do a lot of, I clip out I clip, I get ruthless. I can show you an example of that in which I clipped Tim down to 2.5 minutes from 6 minutes.
She did.
I took him down. And it was because what he had to say was so compelling if I was watching him. If I was right there with him. But you know what? Just listening to him talk through it is not gonna play. And what we got him down to 2.5 minutes, and holy Toledo, did people love it. Like, powerful stuff happened in 2.5 minutes. And again, I didn't know how to do any of this last year.
Are we gonna get to see that?
Yeah, we can show it, if we have time. So let me move then.
I know, sure.
Okay, so the other thing that doesn't work, Sunday morning, I think half of the fun of congregational life is people watching during the sermon. Like, okay, who nodded off? And who was doing that and who was restless? Yeah, totally. It feels really voyeuristic when you're watching somebody preach to the backs of a bunch of heads. So if you're putting up videos of sermons, try to zero in as much as possible. You can start out letting somebody know that they're in a big room, but then you want to really zero in on the person speaking. Otherwise it feels kind of like, oh man, I missed that. Which for some people you want to do that. You want to kind of subconsciously guilt them into not being at church on Sunday. But if we're trying to kind of expand and get our message out there to people and share the faith of Unitarian Universalism, you want them to feel connected. And Kathleen, I'm going to say shout outs to the video world is also really if somebody's like, oh my God, I got acknowledged. Wow, I'm so glad people are joining us online, can be really important. Let's see. All right, things to consider. Mindful of copyright issues. at Church of the Larger Fellowship, unless it's in our hymnal, or unless we have explicit permission to use a piece of poetry or prose or quotes, we don't. You can summarize. You can say, you know, when Emerson said that, you know, you can tell somebody's wealth by their how much they write on their check or whatever. You can generalize it, but you know how our readings on Sunday morning are usually a nice chunk from somebody else. Unless you have explicit permission to use that, you can't, and you shouldn't. I have found people are, if it's something they have written, people are really fairly generous if they don't have a publisher. So anything that's put in a book, it's going to be harder to get permission for. Where, like, if I heard Allison speak and I really liked a clip of what she said, and I just emailed her, and I have no shame about asking people for things. Get over any fear of asking people for things, and just be like, "Hi, Allison, I heard your sermon. It was really great, and I'd really like to use it for this. Would you be willing to let me?" And then I have a little folder that says permissions, and I PDF that email exchange, and I put it in the folder. So if when Allison is like president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, she ever came back to me and said, "Really, Lara? Did I give you permission?" I can say, "Yeah, I got that email from, 16 years ago," or whatever. Yeah.
We can use what's in the hymnal. I thought we didn't have permission to do that.
Yes, I will say, CLF uses that liberally, but we do give credit for it. That is their choice of how they do that.
I can attest to the General Assembly live streaming folk.
Yeah.
It drives them nuts.
Yeah.
This part. This is their probably biggest challenge with live streaming GA are the songs.
Right.
The songs, especially, do your homework on the copyright issues because it will cause you grief.
Right. And getting permission, I found, again, shamelessly, that this little light of mine, like I said, I couldn't sleep the other night, and so I went on I found them on YouTube, I found their website, the Lower Lights, I emailed them and said, "Hey, can I use your song?" And the next day I got a response back saying, "Sure." And, then I go in and put words underneath it and hymnize it, make it a hymn, so that everybody can sing along, and I show it. Thinking about public domain, things like this little light of mine have been around long enough that we don't have to worry about it. Lily?
I'm sorry, this is really terrible, but too far or too close is misspelled. It's T-O-O.
Yeah.
Or unless it was supposed to be like that.
No, I'm dyslexic, so
Oh, okay, all right.
we can, stuff happens with spelling. So either being too far away or too close. Critical, really, never hold the camera if you're videotaping. Oh gosh, you're gonna make everyone nauseous, and it would be bad. It would be bad. Invest in a cheap tripod, or if you turn around, you can see the lovely technology people have piggybacked cameras today, using a grabber thing and just wrapped it around another camera. I have duct taped cameras to chairs. Find a way to stabilize that camera, because people won't watch it if they can't. If the image makes them nauseous, it doesn't matter what you're saying. So, I bought a cheap external microphone for when I am preaching, so that I clip it to the camera. It clips to me. It's to the camera. It cost me about $30. Works just fine, because sound, again, if you're audio taping into your computer, you're going to hear a woo 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 woo, and I've had to work hours to try to help reduce the woo 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 noise that comes from the computer. So thinking about some sort of an external mic.
Does that connect directly, or is it
I don't have it on today. Mine is old school and connects. I'm on a leash usually, but I'm also, when I'm taping, I'm usually not this far from it. Other things to consider. We talked. It sounds like most of you have projectors, which is awesome. When we first started doing this, having a projector was like projector, and they've really come down in price. Thinking about your audio system, I love that, was it you, Lee, that said you got the hearing things that's critical for folks to help them. Thinking about screens and where they're placed, so that it's not, so it doesn't, sometimes you're in a room and here, this is where the minister is and the screen is over there. So where is that screen and how does it work? How does it connect? Don't be afraid to ask. I do not rely on Wi-Fi because when I do, I get burned. If I'm doing a worship or if I'm doing a presentation and I want to show something that I found online, I use a clip grabber program, and I grab it and I pull it down and have it on my laptop so that I can show it from there. Otherwise, something's gonna go wrong with the Wi-Fi. And I have for you my 2-page cheat sheet of places that you can find images and moving video and audio and clip grabbers and all the things that I've compiled in the last year. So, and it's all beta. It's all beta.
Great. Now I've overwhelmed you, likely. And we have overwhelmed you. So now how can you actually use this stuff? It's what we get asked all the time. That's great, you just confused me, but what can I actually do with it?
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk about worship. How we can use technology with worship first. So, for example, with the setup that we had here, you notice that when she was giving her keynote, she had slides in the back. You can easily do it with a worship service as well. You could have graphics that are relevant to the service that are up on the projector screen. Now let's say you have a permanent projector screen, one that doesn't hide. That can be a distraction if nothing's on there. And so what you can do is project the images that go along with the sermon. For example, with a youth service we did down in Atlanta, each time someone different went up to speak, we had a different image that we presented.
How might Christine have avoided having the wrong image up that did not reinforce her message?
I would go over with, it depends who does your AV at your congregation. So down in Atlanta, we had someone up who did the AV, and so on the order of service, we wrote when to click the next slide.
And what I've done is, because I'm a visual person, so I've taken my slides and had them interspersed with the text. So they can hear me say, and then blah, 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 and they see the picture that's supposed to come next if somebody else is doing it. And I would also be careful and mindful in terms of worship, a lot of graphics sometimes can be distracting, and so thinking about what, as Tim said, if there's nothing there, if it's a white screen, that's going to be distracting. So just having a pretty picture is very nice to just even give something.
It doesn't have to be 15 images for the sermon. It could be one that's up there during the sermon.
Right.
A video clip that illustrates a point.
Yeah. So when I preached, I did a sermon after the whole George Zimmerman case came down, and I talked about the talk. And I used two clips, one from CNN and one from another, and I used them rather than doing a reading. I used the video clip as my reading. So it illustrated the point, gave people something to think about, and they heard from a different voice than me about something that was powerful and important.
Did you need permission?
I didn't podcast it. I didn't put it out to the rest of the
But
world.
you shared it
There is something
I
else.
did not share that. I can put the link.
with your congregation.
Yeah, I can share it with my
There's
congregation.
something called fair
And you
use
don't need
for
permission for
church worship services. I don't know the details of that, but an old minister of mine told me about that.
Yeah.
That it was a way that they could project some things in the Sunday morning worship, but you couldn't live stream it over the internet.
Right. Yeah. So I can show it to my congregation, and I can put the link for my congregation to go find that video online after. But I wouldn't actually put the video up.
So hymns, you can project the word, the lyrics of the hymn online, especially helps if you want people to clap so they don't have the books in their hand. Introducing a ritual. Sorry.
That's okay. Hello, that's me. I'll show you really quickly. So at the fellowship in Northern Westchester, Michael, I work with Michael Tino, and he, sorry, give me a second. I can't talk and think at the same time. He put together a quick little video for our water ceremony, and I took it and then I put myself into it because he had done it by himself. So he recorded the audio and the video together. I then changed the words I wanted to change and re-recorded the entire thing and then just spliced us together and added extra pictures into it to make it our introduction to the water ceremony.
Water. Essential for all life. Water in its many forms connects us to all of the other beings in the interdependent web of all existence.
Water soothes us with its music. It inspires us with its beauty. It amazes us with its power.
Each September, Unitarian Universalist congregations all around the world participate in a common ritual of the water ingathering. The water ceremony was developed by UU women seeking a meaningful way to mark their gathering together from each of the 4 directions.
Today, here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northern Westchester, we celebrate the gathering of our community from scattered and sometimes distant places.
From north,
I'm
south,
gonna stop it just to get on
east,
track, but
and west.
so you kind of get an idea.
This commingled water.
It sounds like Michael and I are together. We recorded it a week and a half apart from each other in different parts of the country.
Well,
And it worked. I took his video and put myself into it. So.
And you did that on Garage?
I did that in GarageBand and in iMovie. Okay, keep going, Tim. What were we talking about next?
We were talking about live tweeting the sermon.
Yes.
So there's a hashtag called UUPBuddies that Andrea Lerner is very proud of, and she uses that Sunday mornings when she's traveling and just posts about what the sermon's like at the UU church. There are people all across the nation that are posting what's going on in their UU church or live tweeting their sermons at UUPBuddies. You can also invite like sermon talkbacks on Twitter using a certain hashtag, and you have those be displayed from the projector in real time.
And there are people I know that say, can you put your phone in worship mode? You're free to tweet inspirational things that come out of our quote so that people don't get the look at it, you know, they don't look as people, well, some people still do, but they're less likely to be like, oh, what are you doing? You know, kind of responses. Yeah, so getting people ready for a question, or if you really want them to think about something, you can post a pretty picture out there and get them thinking for discussion or for inspiration. And for those of you who have to plan Sunday services when the minister isn't there, I don't think there's anything wrong with finding a really good sermon online and then having the worship associate do all of the other pieces and showing the sermon. With permission, I would email that minister and say, wow, your sermon, I've used stuff from Marlin, from All Souls Tulsa, you know, you can grab people put stuff out there that you can grab, and on a Sunday service when the minister's not there, or if there's an emergency, let's say, you know, you know, you can utilize video, and people get a lot out of it. Now, they're not gonna want that every Sunday, but you have a Sunday you can't fill in, can't find somebody to preach, bring in a guest speaker all the way from Tulsa.
So let's talk about how to use technology and social media with religious education. So right now, Full Week Faith is the buzzword with religious education, trying to build faith development throughout the week. There's CLF has a website called the Daily Compass, dailycompass.org, DAILYCOMPASS.org, where every day we post an image, like a paragraph of text, and a quote to go along with that meditation. Sorry, not a quote, a question to go along with that meditation. And those are great faith development style questions that you can easily repost to your own social media platforms. I put my Pinterest page for my RE program up, pinterest.com/MUFRE, if you want to see how I'm using Pinterest for my religious education classrooms. I have a board for each class and activities families can do together. If you are using the Window Box approach for your time for all ages, each day leading up to the sermon, in order to build some hype for the sermon, you could put a different image of something that's in the Wonder Box each day and ask, how do these go together? Online covenant groups, online small group discussions are great with closed Facebook groups. In class, you can, it's great to use videos, especially for neighboring faiths, and if you're from a smaller community that may not have a Buddhist or a Hindu temple, let's say, in your community, you can have a video of a service at a Hindu temple instead.
And I know in neighboring faiths, they used to have these really arcane neighboring, like, world religions videos that we used to show.
You can find a lot better ones on YouTube now. And you can also use it with your children's chapel, having the images portrayed in the background, sort of thing. Pastoral care. Laura's going to talk about pastoral care.
So I had a situation in a congregation where there was a horrendous accident with a 5-year-old child, and I learned about it because my spouse got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, saw the post from the father saying we're at the hospital, and at 7 o'clock he came and he was like, you got to get up because this happened. I was on the phone by 7 o'clock. I was at the hospital by 9 o'clock. So I use it as a way to kind of touch base and know what's going on with folks in my community. Using it to inspire people to think about, the stuff that Tim was talking about, like finding little quotes and pictures that you see and putting it out there for people to think about. Encouraging spiritual practices. So I mentioned the illuminations and the Quest CLF. One of the ways that I've used illuminations is I've said to people, okay, so you're really stressed out, take a 3-minute chalice lighting break. Sit down, light the chalice, there's readings there, and just decompress. Okay, now I can face my day, or even a 30-second chalice lighting break to really help that. There's meditation apps you can find, lots of really good stuff. I think a big part, and John Roberto from Faith Formation 2020 talks about this all the time, is that rather than creating new data and information, it's about curating and sharing what's already out there. Because there's great stuff out there. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Helping people connect to their Unitarian Universalist faith. Offering a pastoral message. So there's a Facebook page called 90-Second Sermon. And it's a church in New Jersey, and I think it's in Inglewood, not Inglewood, somewhere in New Jersey. And the minister does midweek 90-second sermons. Basically, he distills down what he's going to talk about, doesn't give away the punchline, but sort of as a teaser, but also as sort of a prep thought. And every week it goes out midweek, a 90-second sermon. And I have looked at enough of them. They are under 90 seconds a lot of times. You can say a lot on video in 90 seconds. One of the things that's happened in the last year and a half is that Church of the Larger Fellowship has realized that we can be sort of the sanctuary in times of crises. We run online services, immediate response services. So right after Newtown, we had a vigil happen. After the Boston bombing, we had a vigil running. When Boston was on lockdown, we ran our vigil all day and had people there supporting folks. So if your congregation, during the week, we're all spread out all over the world, and you can say, if something happens, go to CLF because there's other UUs there that you can be with online in this time of crises. The week of the Newtown shooting, we had over 1,000 people come be with us that week. Because they wanted to be with other people in community, and they wanted to be with other UUs and help make sense of what's happening. And we understand that, most churches don't have the capacity to pull together an hour-and-a-half prayer vigil, and we can do it. So use us, please.
And so let's talk about how to use it for technology for meetings and adult education. It's a way to meet when folks can't meet.
Who said they were talking about doing, was that, okay. All right, so I will tell you right now, Google Hangouts, not my favorite platform. I love Zoom.us.
We are Zoom.
We are totally Zoom crazy at Church Large. You can have up to 25 people in a meeting. They now have...
first 40 minutes are free?
Yeah, you can do 40-minute meetings for free.
Google Hangouts free.
Yeah. Yes. However, it's $100 for a year for an unlimited Zoom account. So it's not that much. Try it out for free. You get HD video, you get way better sound quality, you don't get bumped off as much. You can videotape it, and you can also phone into it. which is really nice. So we are fans of it and use it a lot.
Google Hangouts are good, especially if you want it to be a public kind of style. You can link it to your Google Plus page and do something called Hangouts on the Air, which is recording your Google Hangout, and people can go to YouTube and watch it live. So that's how the Search of the Larger Fellowship does our weekly little talk show called the View. Google Hangouts are good for certain things, but not so wonderful for everyday meetings. I think Zoom's better. Fuse is what they.
When you say that you're having a meeting, does that mean that it's like Skype, that you can see people?
Yes, but with Skype, often it's just one-to-one.
Oh, I
With
see.
Zoom is like Skype, but you can have 25 people
I see, okay.
In a meeting, and you can get, like, I call it the Brady Bunch effect, where you get little boxes and you can see everybody.
And it pops up who's talking.
Well, you can do it
Whoever's
that
talking,
way,
it pops
yeah, but if you can do it as like a whole screen, yeah. It's very handy for staff meetings.
My daughter uses it to play Dungeons and Dragons.
There you
There
go.
you go. Fuse is what the UUA mostly uses for their webinars. It's good for if you're doing a presentation that you're not necessarily looking for a lot of interaction with, I would say. If you're looking to do more of a presentation, Fuse is a good platform. Along with Fuse, there's things called Adobe Connect and WebEx that are the same kind of platform. It's usually more for a person presenting rather than discussion. Screencast is kind of the new kid on the block, so we're still playing around with it.
Same with Screencast, we know it's there.
Way to schedule events. I've been scheduling events to be a pain in the neck sometimes. And so I really get frustrated. And so I am a Doodle fan. Doodle, I know that sounds bizarre, but Doodle lets people, you can set like what days, like let's say we know we need to have a meeting this week. You can put the days of the week on there, you can put, let's say we know the meeting should happen somewhere between noon and 8. And you can let all your participants choose which times works best for them. So you can find a common time for everybody.
And there's even
And
the option of having people say, yeah, I can do it, but I'd rather not. Which means if there's one person, you can be like, really, come on, Jeff. Are you sure you can, and that helps too, because kind of, can people be flexible with things?
So Doodle's quite useful. You can also aim for the midweek engagement, 5-minute homily, 90-second sermon during the week, some kind of midweek faith development or sermon piece that lets people stay connected, and you can do that using any of these platforms as well.
Do you prefer Doodle to Meeting Wizard?
I've never used Meeting Wizard. I don't even know what it is.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah, I've used both.
Very similar.
Yeah, I've used both, and
We've just recently started using this thing for some pastoral, for different activities, sign up Genius.
Yes.
So, we have somebody needs food for the next 2 weeks, people are signing up.
right, yeah. Like in the case with that family with the hospital thing, they set up the entire meal schedule.
Right, and you
So
just
that,
sign up.
yeah, somebody could be like, okay, I'll bring Wednesday lunch, and you didn't have 50.
What's it called?
Sign up Genius.
Genius.
Also, we're thinking about it for ushering, for
We use it for ushering.
Sunday soup and sandwiches.
We use it for our recruitment this year.
Google Docs is another place having all of that, like places for people. I'm gonna get they want to see your sunflowers.
All my board minutes are in Google Docs.
Right, so that people can access
And all my
things.
board documents.
Yep.
So while she's pulling that up, what other questions? By all means.
Does anybody use
The rest of the
Caring
time
Bridge?
the rest of the time until 45 is for questions and other rated videos.
I love Caring Bridge.
What is that?
It's a place to follow a particular.
Caring Bridge. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, we have a beloved member who's ill, going through cancer treatment, families connected, the kids are connected, services are pledged. It's wonderful. Pictures.
So this video, I can say a little bit about it.
You need the original and the cut down?
No.
I have the original, but she just
I
destroyed it.
have the
It's fine.
original, but
So my original version of this, I did not record video, I just recorded audio. And it was about 6.5 minutes long. I thought it was perfect, but I guess not.
It was
It's fine.
ridiculous.
No, it was, the whole service was running long, we had to cut, and so it was no biggie. And this is for our Day of the Dead service. And so this was 6.5 minutes long. There's huge sections that are gone, but if you didn't know that, you would never notice.
One of the places where I get images from is this is on your list of
The background
places.
video here.
Yeah.
21 years ago, when I was 10, my father died suddenly from a pulmonary embolism. There's not a lot from before I was 10 that I remember. But I remember scenes from his funeral vividly. At the graveside service in our family plot outside Sheridan, Indiana, a place I would grow to know all too well, someone came up to my sister and I and told us we should take a flower home to remember the service by. My sister grabbed a rose, and I grabbed a sunflower. We went back to Georgia, and we hung the flowers upside down to dry in the garage. And still, to this day, I have that old, dried sunflower head, although now it has too many companions. I've experienced a lot of loss in my family. Indeed, my sister and I are the oldest surviving direct descendants on my father's branch of my family tree. At every funeral I went to for a family or a close friend, I would bring a sunflower back home from the service, dry it, and put it in a special container. If I couldn't make the funeral, I would buy sunflowers to keep around my apartment, just as a way to show my grief. Sunflowers are my flower of mourning. I look at the sunflower and see the petals. I've had so many family members pass on, it's practically one for each petal on the sunflower. I look at the sunflower and the brown seedlings on the big head and think of the good memories I've had. Each one of the seedlings is a memory about one of those that passed. The woody stalk, strong and solid, represents, well, my UU faith in supporting me in my mourning. The sunflower itself, always turning in the field to face the sun. The grief always looking into the warm light of today and tomorrow for comfort. Sunflowers are indeed my flower of mourning. And whenever I see a sunflower, or take the time to look at my container of dried sunflower heads, I remember. And all those who I've loved, who have passed on, live on as well. They live on in me, in my memories, and in the sunflowers.
So the process for making this, I already knew the story, obviously. That's my life. And, so I wrote up something on text, so a page long or so. It took me maybe about 30 minutes to write it because I told the story before. I then recorded it on the Mac program GarageBand. I did it in 2 takes on that front. I was just reading along. And then I sent it off to Lara, who
I showed it in its entirety to the worship team. And we decided that with all of the other pieces that we had going on, we wanted the content, but that there was stuff that if Tim were standing there telling us the story, we would have felt much more compelled about. But in that format, it was better to cut it down. And my aim was 3.5 minutes, and I was surprised I got it down to 2.5. But there were just pieces that I was like, as I listened through it, I was like, yeah, no, I don't think we need that so much.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And the image I downloaded, I can't remember which one it was from, frankly, because I popped through them all. But I got it for free online. And I apologize for the video quality. On my laptop, it looks a little better.
It looks like a sunflower instead of Picasso's original stuff.
Exactly. It's a little artsy right now.
And so you can imagine that if you're doing a Day of the Dead service, you could plop that out on your social media sites on Wednesday. It's about 2.5, you can work on it and get it out. And then that would lead people into getting ready for the service, or you could do it the week after as a way for people to remember what you just talked about. You can post and say, hey, listen to this. What are some rituals that you have in the morning?
Yeah.
And so it's a way in addition to building the connection to the congregation, it's also they're building their personal faith as well. Other questions? You got 5 minutes. Because I'm sure no one has any questions. We didn't overwhelm anybody. I know.
I know. It's a lot.
Everyone's
I
an
knew
expert
it was a
now.
lot to be like boom, boom, boom.
Lead and ask.
So I have a fantasy of actually getting some projectors and projecting some of these things that you suggest on this very Gothic church on either side of the high pulpit and images and voices. But it seems like you need either really dedicated volunteers or a paid person to make that all happen during worship service correctly. Or have people had success in getting an AV committee that's really committed and will show up every Sunday to do that kind of stuff?
Yes, in Atlanta we did. In Atlanta, it was part of the AV lights and sound team. Also took care of the projection. That was just part of their volunteer roles.
Atlanta?
650, 700 members or so.
So 200 people.
You have to
You have to be
search.
lucky, or?
You have to search.
Well,
No, you don't need that. We've got 39 members and we've got a sound team. There's 3 of us, we're gonna have 4 who do it every Sunday.
but you don't use a projector, right?
We don't use a projector, but we could.
Right, you use
Right.
a
We just have to
computer
move our
and a
sound
screen.
station from the side to the rear and we can
Okay.
do this.
All right,
You use a
so
screen and
just
a-
find
and
the
a
right
laptop.
people, okay.
Use a screen and laptop, yeah.
Right, and you can move it around, you can prepare stuff at home. You can just bring it in, plug it
Yeah,
in.
and test it, test it, test it, test it.
We're starting to use a laptop now for our sound capture too.
Right.
We're starting to go right from our mixer, right to the computer.
Nice.
Anybody live streaming from a laptop?
We haven't tried it yet.
So the thing about live streaming, I'll tell you. Okay, so at Church of the Larger Fellowship, we offer services 3 times a week: Sunday night, Monday morning, and Monday afternoon. And initially, the thought was, okay, we'll just have somebody there sort of preaching. In live stream, there's the video section, and then there's a chat window. Well, what ended up happening is that the person who was preaching couldn't also monitor the chat window at the same time, and they sort of felt a little crazy. And it felt very false. And so that's why we went to recorded video that plays, and then we are live, the ministers are live in the chat window at the same time. So we're happy, we're there every week. They don't see us. I mean, like, you may hear me, you may not see me. My hand is on everything at worship, but you may not see me every week, but I'm in that chat window. So I have a live stream, and if you're going to do a live stream of a service, again, I would really caution you to think about how does that translate, and think through, maybe go and look at some of the full services, and do you feel engaged with it? Do you not feel engaged? And maybe you will, and that is great. But the other part of it is, if you're going to have a chat window, there really needs to be somebody in that chat window that can deal with and handle anything that comes through that chat window.
With live streaming, there are some congregations out there that do live stream. I think it's wonderful, but you need to be really careful about the music. You may just want to start by live streaming the actual sermon, which is, a lot of people will want the music as well, but you're going to have to vet those hymns and those music pieces really well before you start putting them on there. So if you do want to attempt and try with live streaming, start with the sermon and make sure the minister knows to look in the camera.
Yeah.
That's the first step.
Yeah.
Allison, you had a question.
So here's the boring part. I'm really curious about what your favorite resources for social media policies are.
The one I wrote. So,
What?
there
Personally,
we go.
I like the one I
Problem
wrote.
solved.
So if you'd like to go download it from uufh.org, you're welcome to, under the About section.
If you Google UUCA social media policies, it'll show up. The first one, it'll show up from UU World or from my personal website. UUCA social media policies. The ones I wrote are geared towards people posting under the congregational name. They are not geared towards congregants posting in a Facebook group. If you're looking for those kinds of discussion guidelines, the UUA has some policies on their website, but those are geared more towards being in right relations with each other in a Facebook group, more than policies for someone posting under the congregational name. The ones I wrote are for under the official name. Jeff?
So let's say I wave a magic wand, we figured out all our policies, we figured out what our message is, we figured out our brand, and we've got all this stuff running. How many people is it that's supporting it? And are they staff or are they volunteers?
So, in Atlanta, it was volunteers. I was doing it, and I ended up being a helper too. And I was doing Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Tumblr, and a couple others. And then we had the person who did the podcast and that sort of thing. Look and put out the word that you're looking for volunteers. I think it's better if you have a staff person as the head. I just started doing it. I didn't get permission or anything like that.
Well, that's why good stuff happens.
I just started doing it, and then eventually I was just like, I need someone to be in charge of me during the social media. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I was like, we really need to write some policies in case we ever leave. They're like, let's do it, And so I kind of went to the staff to get everything.
Yeah, we've talked about the fact that we need to know what our message is, what our brand is, and what our policies are before we start rolling all this stuff out.
Here's the challenging part with that. I don't want you to be too limited by waiting on the policies.
No,
the reason why is because, one, you learn by doing, and two, with our tendency to wordsmith, it could take a year or two to come up with these policies.
That short?
And people,
Yeah.
people who don't use it tend to be very, very afraid.
Yes.
And until they see that it works, you
Mhm.
can't get them to embrace it, which is why I went from asking for permission to, oh heck, get out of the way.
Ask
and did it.
forgiveness is always
And
easier
then-
than asking
and
permission.
then-
We're actually doing both in parallel.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We're starting, because we know
That's
it's gonna take us a
exactly what we
while to figure out how to do this stuff anyway.
Well, I happen to know that your staff team is also taking the CLO social media course.
Yeah, that's
So,
correct.
I happen to be breaking their work. So, they're doing a good job. I can
You
say
do a
that.
page.
Yes, and I want to see that, those things as well. Are you going to post them online or something?
That's not paid thing.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Fellowship.
we're not posting those for
And
free.
send it in the about section.
So I will say, ask for volunteers for it, but you need to have someone who's in charge of making sure that they're posting under the congregational name. They're not
Going rogue.
going rogue is the polite way to put it. You need to make sure that you have some sort of person that's looking out to make sure that the congregational name is not being used according to your values. Let's put it
Only
that
have
way.
to put something once.
Yes, and so I would encourage, if you have staff, I would encourage that person to be a staff person because they're accountable to the congregation. If not, it's someone that should be appointed by the board or somebody like that, that there is some accountability there. But it's fine to have policies where it's volunteers doing it. So
Okay.
down in Atlanta, what we did is I was the main volunteer. I started it all up. I had a couple other volunteers who were helping me, and I also made sure the staff people who wanted to be were also administrators of all the social media platforms, just in case.
Is that right?
Timothy,
Tim T?
no, Timothy, Timothy. Atkins, Timothy.
Really?
Yeah. Really? Or DRE@moth.org. DRE@MUUF.org. We need to go.
I have the slides. Tim will probably have them in a little bit, but.
Do we just email you?
Yeah.
Email Laura for the slides. Me, if you have really random social media questions, we will pass out. I think you're pointing up the hand out. Yes,
We're so late.
Here we go. You just pass those around.
Yeah,
It's because we're the bad kids in the back of the room. That's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is excellent.
It's on the top. It's my full name, Lara KJ Campbell at yahoo.com.
I can't read what you wrote for his email address.
Atkins.timothy@gmail.com. I thought it was Tim, but I was wrong.
Yeah, Atkins.Timothy.
Timothy, there's more.
There's Mark, okay.
There's more coming.
Or on Twitter at UUTimAtkins. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming.